An interview is an unnatural setting, and no matter how many times a person has attended interviews, many still get nervous. Many new graduates wear too tight clothes, too high heels, and too much makeup. But the main thing to remember for candidates is that the prospective employer is interested in their portfolio, and hence they've invited them for the interview. Here are my 5 personal top tips to remember when attending an interview. Firstly, you need to have basic knowledge in your field of expertise. If you've studied fine arts, for example, you should have an understanding of the elements of art like color, shape, form, texture, space, etc. Equally, if you've studied HR, you should have an understanding of recruitment, onboarding, talent management, performance management, exiting staff out of the organization, and legislation. What is the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, Labor Relations Act, Skills Development Act, etc. Equally, engineering. You need to have an understanding of design, building materials, infrastructure, maintenance, that's civil engineering, etc. Secondly, and actually before I even go further, this is probably for me the most important part, to have the basic knowledge of your field of expertise. Many people fail their interviews because they actually have no understanding at all of what they've studied at school, and yet they're attending their first interview. This is their time to sell themselves. So if you cannot sell yourself in something that you've actually spent 3, 4, 5, even 6 years studying, you cannot really expect an employer to employ you, because what are they basing their appointment on? So this is very important. The second one is to research the employer and have an understanding of what the position that you've applied for. You need to understand the core business of the organization. What do they do? How do they make money? Who are their main clients? What are their values? What is their vision? What is the mission of the organization? So get to understand that. And as well, sometimes you can even ask for the job description of the position that you've applied for, so you can actually see what is expected of the candidate. The third tip or advice would be, you need to arrive early at the interview. You need to set the tone for the interview. This will definitely help you to gather your thoughts, prepare yourself. Remember what you've practiced when you're at home. When you are late, it's actually quite difficult to actually settle yourself down. So it's actually unsettling in a way to be late for an interview. And as well, you'd find that the panel actually doesn't even listen to you because you're late, and some would feel like you've wasted their time. So it's really important to arrive early for your interview. The fourth thing I'd say is that you need to prepare yourself even before leaving your house. So it would be even the day before attending the interview. You need to check the traffic trends and the routes to the interview. And if you use public transport, try your best to make sure that at least you check. Do you need to walk to in some parts of the journey? How long would it take you to walk? Is there grass on the route? Because, you might get dirty before you get to the interview. So you can carry a cloth to clean yourself up once you get to the interview. You also need to be neat and look presentable. You wear clean clothes, clean hair, clean nails. You don't have to wear expensive clothes, but just be neat. Doesn't have to be Peruvian hair or Brazilian. It can just be your normal hair, but at least look a little bit neat. As well, limit the makeup if you can. Just touch up and, the basics, because sometimes people smudge the makeup and the interviewers are distracted and they can't tell you that your face, it's now looking funny. So just try the basics. Of course, if you're in the beauty industry, this tip does not apply to you. Lay the makeup as much as possible. Look, good. And then the fifth tip would be listen properly in the interview. Listen to what the interviewer is asking and respond accordingly. If you don't understand what has been asked of you, then ask them to rephrase the question. Don't assume just because you heard a phrase or two, then you know what they're asking for. And some people don't even ask you again because they just assume you don't know what they're talking about. And therefore, they would even just skip the question and say, candidate didn't know what we were talking about. Score you incorrectly, 2 out of 10, because you didn't answer properly. So that's my top 5 advice. Then just the bonus part would be give the recruiters 2 weeks minimum after the interview, because often you'd find that they still have to interview other people after your interview. So calling them after 2 days is not going to help your case. And so just give them time. They need time. Many companies, interview different candidates on different dates. It also depends on their diaries. How do they, some people are scheduled in and out of interviews and in and out of meetings. So just give them time and try not to pester them as much as possible. I know sometimes, as a candidate, you are anxious. You want to know what is the final result, but you also need to remember that the person who interviewed you also has other candidates that they've interviewed. Thank you. That's it.